One of the reasons our officers were able to identify the suspect quickly is because of our enhanced deployment in the area, both overt and covert.
Toronto police say they've arrested and charged a man accused of firing multiple shots at a Jewish-owned restaurant during Passover.
80 firefighters called in to put out a massive fire at a waste disposal plant in the 427 and Dundas area in Etobicoke.
After welcoming visitors for nearly 30 years and then being closed for just as long, the Toronto landmark is set to be demolished. We'll tell you what's coming to the site of the McLaughlin Planetarium.
And we are live outside the Rogers Center. This is where the Jays are trying to avoid a series sweep by the Dodgers.
This is Live at 5. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz West.
I'm Bakari Savage. Welcome to Live at 5. We begin with this. Toronto Police Chief Myron Demke has announced that a suspect has been arrested after shots were fired at a Jewish-owned restaurant in North York. This happened during Passover. The CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan, joins us live from the Avenue and Wilson community. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari and Liz, this is the second time that restaurant has been shot at. The most recent happened on Friday, April the 3rd. Police say that they responded to this restaurant near this location here, Avenue Road and Brook Avenue, at 1:30 a.m. regarding the sound of gunshots. When they arrived on scene, they saw that there had been evidence that an establishment had been fired at. It was the same Jewish-owned restaurant as previously reported. And just 2 days after this incident, they arrested a 30-year-old man named Mohammed Mahdi. He is from Brampton, and he's now been charged with the 4 criminal code offenses, 3 firearms offenses, and a discharging of a firearm. The chief said today that he credits the new initiative where they've got both uniform officers and covert officers around Jewish communities, around synagogues. And it was as a result of these covert operations that these officers in plain clothes were able to identify a vehicle and a license plate very quickly. And then just 48 hours after this very disturbing incident, the police made an arrest. We heard from the chief earlier on, and we heard from a community spokesperson as well. And here's more from the two of them.
Our investigators were able to move quickly to identify the suspect. And on Sunday, 2 days after the incident, we arrested him. As of right now, 4 charges have been laid, and this is still an active and ongoing investigation.
We are grateful to the Toronto Police Service for their swift and decisive action in making this arrest. It sends a clear message that acts of intimidation and hate will not be tolerated and will be treated with the seriousness they deserve. At a time when the Jewish community is being relentlessly targeted and where hate and violence are not only escalating, but increasingly normalized, this response matters deeply.
We were also told today that the newly formed counterterrorism unit and the hate crime unit are acting in support of the Guns and Gangs unit, who are leading this investigation, and they are still investigating to see whether or not there is evidence to suggest that this was, in fact, a hate-motivated crime. So
Steve, are you able to elaborate on what the chief meant when he talked about covert and overt deployment without compromising the investigation?
Sure. Well, they've got officers in and around these areas that aren't in uniform, and it just so happened that these officers were in the area where these shots were fired. So they didn't witness it per se, but they certainly were able to get there very quickly as a result of this new initiative, and they were able to get a vehicle and a license plate, and then that led them to an address in Brampton where they executed a criminal code search warrant on Sunday, and they were able to arrest this 30-year-old man.
Okay, reporting live, CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan. Thanks, Steve.
And a 14-year-old facing charges in the assault of a person with disabilities in Bradford. South Simcoe police say they investigated a series of incidents involving social media platforms in which a person with a disability was targeted, harassed, and bullied by a group of youths. They also say the investigation intensified after the circulation of a video depicting a violent assault on the victim. A teen is facing multiple counts of assault, and police say their investigation is ongoing.
And police are treating a tow truck fire in Brampton as a suspected case of arson. So the fire broke out just before midnight in the driveway of a home on Municipal Drive. This is near Kennedy Road in Beauvert. Police say that it has been deemed suspicious, and neighbors say they heard something.
I heard just a bang. Okay. And then I went outside of the back to have a smoke, and I heard another 2 bang. And then when I came back in to put the alarm on, I saw all these lights outside.
And there's no word on any potential suspects yet.
Firefighters remain on scene after a massive fire at a waste disposal plant in Etobicoke. So flames broke out at the building on Shorncliffe Road in the 427 and Dundas area around 5 this morning. Officials tell CP24 that someone in the area noticed the smoke and then they called 911. 80 firefighters responded and multiple aerial trucks were used to try and put out the flames.
Toronto Fire arrived on scene and found heavy flame and smoke coming from the building. We took a offensive attack mode, which means we did not go interior to the building. We set up a lot of aerial operations on all sides of the buildings and started fighting the fire from the outside.
Chopper 24 was over the fire this morning as crews continued to douse flames. A lot of smoke could be seen spilling out of the facility. No injuries have been reported, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation.
It's 5:06. Let's get a check in the commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa and Cia Bois.
Oh, good afternoon, Bakari and Liz. And been watching a problem on the eastbound lanes of the 401 through Leslie in the collectors. It is a collision. At one point, it was in the left lane. What remains was moved over to the right side, and it looks like these last 2 vehicles that were involved are leaving the scene. Unfortunately, if you're headed that way, it's slow from the 410. And then on the westbound 401, pretty busy, but at least no new issues as you head from Victoria Park in sections out towards about the 427. Very, very busy. Northbound and southbound on the Don Valley Parkway, pretty heavy between the Gardner and the 401. Again, it's just volume delays. And if your travel taken towards the Gardner, same situation, busy as you make your way into and out of the downtown core. We do have problems that I can't see happening on the 401 eastbound out at Highway 6 North. Crews on scene of a collision that is blocking the left lane as well.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Well, sending it over now to Samantha TC at the TTC Transit Control Center. Good afternoon, Samantha. Just checking in with you to see if there are any issues impacting commuters on TTC.
Thanks, Adjoa, and good afternoon. Yeah, things are moving quite well for us this evening. We're not seeing any delays on any of our subway lines or LRT lines. So if you are headed into our stations, it should be smooth sailing for your evening commute. Now, taking a look over at our surface routes, we are seeing a detour in the west end of the city impacting our 123 Sherway buses. This is because of a fire investigation going on along Shorncliffe Avenue. So our buses are detouring around the area. They are using Dundas Street to the East Mall and then over to North Queen Street during the investigation. So if you are traveling, make sure to leave some extra time. Now, just a reminder for those of you traveling in the downtown core, there are some service changes going on the 509 Harbourfront and 511 Bathurst streetcar service to be aware of. So the 509 Harbourfront streetcar service has been suspended because of infrastructure work. So shuttle buses are running from the Exhibition Loop over to the intersection of Queens Quay and Spadina. Now, if you are at Union Station, you're able to take a 510 Spadina streetcar over to that Spadina and Queens Quay intersection, and from there transfer over to those replacement buses. Now, during the work, 511 Bathurst streetcar service has also been impacted. Streetcar service has been shortened, only running from the Bathurst station over to Fleet Loop. Now, this work is expected to wrap up tomorrow morning by 4 a.m. Now, to stay up to date on the latest, make sure to check us out on ttc.ca. And with that, I'll send it back to you, Bakari and Liz.
All right, Senior Communications Advisor Samantha TC, thanks a lot.
It's 5:09, 6 degrees, feels like 3. This is Live at 5.
Well, Canada's longest-serving mayor has announced that he's running for office again this fall. We're going to hear from Milton Mayor Gord Krantz and the councillor who's running against him next.
Canada's longest-serving mayor isn't ready to kick back and relax just yet. Gord Krantz says he intends to seek re-election in this fall's municipal election. The soon-to-be 89-year-old has been Milton's mayor since 1980 and has been on local council for 60 years. He joined CP24 this afternoon to talk about his candidacy.
A growing community will always have its challenges, and One of the things that I certainly wasn't too impressed with was the last term of council. Our taxes rose by approximately 36%. So in that 4-year term, you can average that out at 9% a year, and that's over and above what I supported, but the majority of council supported that increase. So at least in my opinion, we have to get that, looked after. So that's one of the challenges, and I'm certainly up to that on making sure that our taxes stay reasonable here in the town of Milton. So that's one of the challenges that I know I will be faced with, not only if I'm reelected, but when I'm reelected.
He will have a little competition, though. There's a declared opponent for Krantz. Current councillor Samira Ali confirmed late last year she would chase Milton's top job. Ali admits Milton faces some challenges and she's willing to take them on.
The town of Milton, as you know, is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada. And our challenges, much like any other municipality, are balancing growth with infrastructure and while keeping taxes low, because economy is not the best and affordability is not the best and there's housing crises. And so the challenge will be, and the opportunities will be, to make sure we do all of that by bringing in more economy, by bringing in more businesses. And so you need an energetic individual in that office to go out and about and bring that economy into our town.
Now, this will be the 22nd time Krantz has run in a municipal election.
Well, Toronto streetlight system's getting a major overhaul. Mayor Olivia Chow and Toronto Hydro announcing plans to modernize the lights by converting them to all LED and upgrading lighting infrastructure. So the $577 million investment over 10 years, it aims to make neighborhoods safer, save taxpayers money, and reduce the city's carbon footprint.
We will convert every street light to modern LED lights in the next 10 years, more than doubling our current pace. To keep the system going, we will also replace aging infrastructure below ground. 9 out of 10 critical underground cables are past their service life. This is just not a number we can ignore.
The program covers full LED conversion, critical underground infrastructure renewal, and smart lighting controls. The scale of Toronto's system is among Canada's largest, with 173,000 luminaires, over 60,000 poles, and 2,500 kilometers of overhead and underground cables. That's a lot of infrastructure. Full LED conversion is expected to be complete by 2035, and the investment is going to be front-loaded in the first 4 years to accelerate our conversion to LED.
The city says that LED streetlights are brighter and more consistent and allow for faster detection of problems and easier repairs.
And the province plans to extend workplace safety and insurance coverage to workers in privately run care facilities like retirement homes. The update is part of a broader set of changes to labor rules. The government says the privately operated facilities, which include foster homes, are currently not subject to mandatory coverage. The update will mean about 29,000 workers will now be protected if they're injured or become ill on the job. And that includes nurses, personal support workers, and resident care workers. CUPE calls it a half measure. The union says more than 1.5 million Ontario workers remain without mandatory coverage. And while in Hamilton for the WSIB announcement, Labour Minister David Piccini addressed the Skills Development Fund controversy that's been swirling around him. He says the next round of funding will go ahead as planned, with changes from the Integrity Commissioner taken into account.
This fund has helped hundreds of thousands of workers across Ontario. It's helped 100,000 people out of poverty, and we're assisting the Integrity Commissioner with the important work that she does. And because of the independence of that process, a process I fundamentally respect, I have no further comments on that. But today, as is the case, whether it's a training fund or whether it's supports we provide workers, is about caring for those who care for us.
Ontario's Auditor General found that the government gave preferential treatment to companies and individuals with ties to the Ontario PCs.
It's 5:16, 6 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And up next, an Ontario MP has defected from the Conservatives, walked across the floor to join the Liberals. That makes the Liberals one seat shy of a majority government, with 3 by-elections to be held on Monday. A Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz in response to Israel's attacks in Lebanon. This is one of several strikes in Beirut today as Israel continues its fight against Hezbollah. Iran's foreign minister says ending the war in Lebanon was part of the 2-week ceasefire agreement reached with the United States yesterday. U.S. President Donald Trump refuting that claim in an interview on PBS NewsHour, referring to Israel's latest strikes as a separate skirmish. Israel had said the agreement does not extend to its war with the Iran-backed Hezbollah, although mediator Pakistan says it does. Now, Iran has been restricting access to the Strait of Hormuz since the start of the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign. About a fifth of global oil passes through the waterway. And in the wake of the ceasefire, oil prices dropped about 15% to below $100 a barrel. Now, gas prices are expected to take a big dip in the GTA following the announcement of a 2-week ceasefire in the Middle East. So if you can hold off on getting gas, you might want to wait until Friday. Gas price analyst Dan McTagg is expecting gas prices to drop by 15 cents a liter on Friday. Diesel expected to drop 28 cents, and gas prices have been rising steadily since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran and Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, a key oil shipping route. We spoke to Dan McTagg about what to expect in the coming weeks.
Getting back to those low prices that we saw just before March, not likely to happen. Nick, don't forget, next week we have the switchover from winter to summer gasoline. As far as the federal government is concerned, that GST 5% added to the higher price means there's been a windfall over the past 30 days, maybe several, probably $50 to $100 million. And provinces here in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic provinces, which have an 8% attached to that 5% in terms of an HST, should also give strong consideration to providing at least some relief, because we're not going back to the low prices we saw just before March.
Another member of parliament has crossed the floor from the opposition to join the Liberals. Marilyn Gladu was introduced as the newest addition to Prime Minister Mark Carney's caucus today. This is after she defected from the Conservatives. She's represented the riding of Sarnia-Lambton since 2015. Gladu is the 5th MP to join the Liberals since November and the 4th to leave the Conservatives. She says that she made the move because it's the best thing for her community's priorities and the country.
Marilyn has tremendous experience in business as an engineer, international business experience, and 10 years, 4 elections of experience in Parliament, and one of the most collaborative members of Parliament, working across party lines on important issues, and really dedicated to her electors in Sarnia and Lambton, Baie-Quechua, which I am informed rightly means where the waters meet. And the waters, in my analogy, are meeting in service of Canadians.
I've been watching the Prime Minister since he was elected, and the big things that he is driving, nation-building projects, diversifying our trade, bolstering our defense, plans to address criminality and build more homes. These are all the things that Canadians want. These are actually the things that the people of Sarnia, Lambton, Baie-Quechua want.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre reacting to Gladu's decision, writing on X, quote, Mark Carney is seizing a costly Liberal majority that voters denied him, and doing so through backroom deals. In January, MP Gladu said that floor crossers should face voters in a by-election to give voters the final say. I could not agree more. She should do so. The people in her community voted for our Conservative vision of a Canada that's affordable, safe, and strong at home, not for the costly Liberal government that she has now joined. She should honor her word and let voters decide. Well, the Liberals are now just 1 seat shy of a majority government, with 3 by-elections coming Monday.
522, 6 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And the Jays are trying to avoid a series sweep by the LA Dodgers. We're going to take you live to the Rogers Center next.
The Blue Jays looking to avoid being swept by the LA Dodgers this afternoon as they try to put the brakes on a 6-game losing streak. For more on today's game, we're going to go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. How's the mood there, Melissa?
Hey, Liz, Dave Bakari. Listen, the score right now not in the Jays' favor. We're in the bottom of the 7th inning. It's the LA Dodgers that are leading 3-1. I am hearing some action happening right now, though. Hang on. Just listening to try to get the update for you here. It sounds like the Jays might be scoring here. So control room, let me know what's happening. There is a chance now that okay. We now have a score of 3-2. Listen, we're trying to follow this as it happens in real time. Glad we could bring you some good news. So the Jays closing the gap a little bit here. Ideally, walking away with a win here tonight. They still have their work ahead of them. Of course, Shohei Ohtani was on the mound for the Dodgers today. So we knew that it was going to be a challenge. It was the Jays that got on the board first, scoring in the third inning. And then the Dodgers would answer up with a couple runs of their own. Still have more of the game here tonight, but listen, it has been a rough start for these Toronto Blue Jays in this season so far. Right now, with a record of 4-7, coming off 6 straight losses here, and of course, hosting those LA Dodgers this week. The last time they were in town, that was back in November for the World Series. We know that did not end in our favor. How are fans feeling about this series, about this team? Have a listen.
You know what? We're hoping for a win. It was heartbreaking. I'm not sure we'll ever get over Game 7, but we're here today to cheer on our Blue Jays.
I think they got to get the players back, the pitchers, the 3 pitchers, the Savage, Barrios too. I like Barrios.
Yeah.
And Bieber, right? And maybe Santander can come to town this year, I hope.
We kind of started off nice and hot so far. We're like 4-1, and after we got a little downhill right now. But Jays fans are pretty upset, but we're going to get through it.
Hey, we got some more good news to share with you. Dalton Varsho just getting a hit in, driving in another run for the Jays, now tied up at 3 apiece as we get closer to the end of this game here. What we want to see happen is those Dodgers leaving town with a loss. Tomorrow we do have a day off for these Jays. They can regroup a little, then prepare for the next series ahead. Minnesota Twins, Bakari and Liz, they're going to be coming to town on Friday, hosting them for the weekend. Back to you.
Yeah, I love Toronto sports fans. Eternally positive about things, no matter what their teams are doing. Thanks so much for that update. That's CP24's Melissa Duggan.
It's 5:27, 6 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And we're live on Avenue Road near Wilson tonight. That's outside a Jewish-owned restaurant that was shot at during Passover last week. Toronto's police chief announced a suspect has been arrested, and we'll get a live update on the investigation coming up.
One of the reasons our officers were able to identify the suspect quickly is because of our enhanced deployment in the area, both overt and covert.
Toronto police say they've arrested and charged a man accused of firing multiple shots at a Jewish-owned restaurant during Passover.
And 80 firefighters called in to put out a massive fire at a waste disposal plant in the 427 and Dundas area in Etobicoke.
Well, after welcoming visitors for nearly 30 years, and they've been closed for just as long, a Toronto landmark is set to be demolished. We're going to tell you what's coming to the site of the McLaughlin Planetarium.
And we are live outside the Rogers Center. That's where the Jays are trying to avoid a series sweep by the Dodgers. The game right now tied at 3-3 in the bottom of the 7th inning.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
I'm Liz West, and welcome to Live at 5. Firefighters remain on scene after a massive fire at a waste disposal plant in Etobicoke. Flames broke out of the building on Shorncliffe Road in the 427 and Dundas area. It was around 5 this morning. Officials tell CP24 that someone in the area noticed the smoke and then called 911. 80 firefighters responded. Multiple aerial trucks were used to try and put the flames out.
Toronto Fire arrived on scene and found heavy flame and smoke coming from the building. We took a offensive attack mode, which means we did not go interior to the building. We set up a lot of aerial operations on all sides of the buildings and started fighting the fire from the outside.
And Chopper 24 saw this as they were over the fire this morning as crews continue to douse flames. A lot of smoke could be seen spilling out of the facility. No injuries have been reported, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation.
And police are treating a tow truck fire in Brampton as a suspected case of arson. The fire broke out. This was just before midnight in the driveway of a home on Muskoka Drive near Kennedy Road in Beauvais. Police say it has been deemed suspicious. Neighbors say they heard something.
I heard just a bang. And then I went outside of the back to have a smoke, and I heard another 2 bang. And then when I came back in to put the alarm on, I saw all these lights outside.
There's no word on any potential suspects.
And Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew, he's announced a suspect has been arrested after shots were fired at a Jewish-owned restaurant in North York. That was during Passover. CP24 crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us now live from the Avenue and Wilson community. Steve?
Yeah, Liza Bakari, police tell us that they responded to a call for the sound of gunshots on Friday, April the 3rd, 1:30 in the morning at a Jewish-owned restaurant here in the Avenue Road and Brook Avenue area. When they arrived on scene, they certainly saw evidence that this restaurant had been shot at. And we heard today that just 2 days later, on Sunday, April the 5th, the Toronto police executed a criminal code search warrant out in Brampton. And they arrested a 30-year-old man named Mohammed Mahdi and charged him with 4 criminal code offenses, 3 firearms offenses, and 1 discharging a firearm. The police chief said today that he credits their new initiative that was put in place during Passover, which saw a heightened police presence in and around Jewish communities, community centers, and synagogues. And there were both uniform presence and covert operations as well. And it was as a result of these covert operations that police were able to quickly obtain a vehicle make and a license plate. And that's what led them to Brampton just 2 days after this shooting occurred. This is the second time that this restaurant has been shot at. So some very good police work. And this new operation that's been in place by the police certainly has paid off, if you will, with regards to being as successful as it was, just able to capture this now accused 2 days after this shooting occurred. Here's more from the police chief and from a community spokesperson we heard from at police headquarters. Let's listen.
One of the reasons our officers were able to identify the suspect quickly is because of our enhanced deployment in the area, both overt and covert. Specifically in this case, covert assets saw the suspect fleeing and gathered critical information that led to the arrest of the suspect. We don't want this kind of violence in Toronto, and this is why we set up Project Resolute, Task Force Guardian, and other initiatives to protect our communities.
Canadians expect more than an arrest. We expect to be kept safe. The bail system must match the gravity of this act and ensure this individual remains behind bars. Anything less would be a public safety failure. The safety of the Jewish community and every Canadian must be non-negotiable.
Investigation is being led by the Toronto Police Guns and Gangs Unit. They are being supported by the newly formed Counterterrorism Squad and the Hate Crimes Unit as well. And they will continue during this investigation to gather evidence to see whether or not that this occurrence was motivated by hate. Send it back to you guys.
Well, hopefully this arrest will give the community some peace of mind. Thanks so much for that update. That's CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan.
It's 5:35. Let's check on the commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa and Sia Yabois.
Well, it looks like we have 2 problems of note now, Bakari, happening on the eastbound lanes of the 401, this time on the approach to the DVP 404. You're running into a stall if you're traveling in the express lanes. Looks like it's off to the shoulder. It was partially in that left lane, but just drive with a bit of extra care. The reason the delays continue is that just as you make your way a little bit further east, just on the approach to Victoria Park via the express lanes, stall with emergency crews on scene, so they are blocking the right lane. Now, the rest of the 401 continues to move slowly across the top of the city if you're headed out. If your travels do take you to the Don Valley Parkway northbound, still pretty jammed, but slowly starting to improve. The delays start from Don Mills. They continue up to the 401. And if you're traveling into Vaughan, pretty jammed on the northbound 400. We had some problems. My camera went out, so I'll just tell you about them. Northbound 400 at the start of the ramp to Bass Pro Mills. It is a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right lane. And on city streets in the downtown core, crews on scene of a collision on Bathurst and Richmond. I'll send it over to Samantha TC at the TTC Transit Control Center. Samantha, good afternoon again. Just checking in to see, are there any issues on TTC Line 1? I heard there were issues at Davisville Station. Did they clear?
Thanks so much, Adjoa. So happy to report things have cleared up at Davisville Station. We did have an emergency alarm activation, but we're all good there. So it's smooth sailing along lines 1, 2, and 4 if you are headed into the subways. Also, things are moving well on the Eglinton line and line 6 Finch West with no delays there either. Now, taking a look over at our surface routes, we do have a detour on one of our bus routes in the west end of the city. This is the 123 Sherway buses. Those are detouring around the Shorncliffe Avenue area because of reports of a fire investigation. So buses are traveling along Dundas Street West, the East Mall, and over to North Queen Street while Toronto Fire is on scene. They are responding to the blaze. Now, if you are going to be traveling late tonight, we do have a planned subway closure along the portion of Line 1 starting at midnight between Lawrence West and St. George stations for planned station work. Now, shuttle buses will be running and regular service will start up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Now, to stay up to date on the latest, make sure to check us out on ttc.ca as always. And I'll send it back to you, Bakari and Liz in the newsroom.
All right, Senior Communications Advisor Samantha TC, thanks for the update.
And it's 5:37, 6 degrees. This is Live at 5.
After nearly 6 decades, a former Toronto landmark is being torn down. We're going to tell you what's coming to the site of the McLaughlin Planetarium. That's coming up next. Okay, demolition is happening on the long-closed McLaughlin Planetarium as U of T moves forward with the redevelopment of the downtown site. CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live with this. Andrew.
Hey, Bakari, and just as we're here right now, coming up and talking to some people who saw this as planetarium in its heyday. Let's not forget, it took 2 decades to have this, the actual planetarium be created through the 40s, 50s, into the 60s. It was in operation for 30 years. It was the first planetarium in Canada, and also at the same time, it had a lot that, just thinking of memories, I was very young, but I remember being here in the early 90s before it was abruptly closed during the Mike Harris years in 1995. There was a lot of arts and cultural funding that had to be taken out during austerity times, according to the government at that point. But now, since then, it's been standing here, but potentially, it's seemingly, not for much longer. And someone who may actually have a bit more of memories of what this place was in its heyday, SJ, would you like to join us live on CP24?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you're enthused. So tell me some of the things that you got up to in this building in the dome here.
Well, there's lots. I mean, the one that most people know is about the celestial skies. You can come, whether it be a date night, family night, teachers would bring their class here. It was something for everybody in the city to do. It brought them together, and it was educational, and it was fun. And you could repeat the process because they had different constellations, different shows, whatever. But one of the things I got to do was, it was really special, is as a photographer in the industry, I got to photograph the laser shows. And the one that comes to mind is Laser Floyd. Floyd is everywhere now at the Meridian Center and other places here with the Dark Side of the Moon. They just had another iconic show, 350 exhibits at the CNE. But they had Laser Floyd here, Dark Side of the Moon, and it was from Imagineering, from the U.S., the great company, and it was wonderful, and they had many of them. And so when I heard today that this was demolished day, I ran down here because this is to the decision makers across the board, every level of government, this is wrong. I mean, we need things in the city to unite and connect, and this was one of the places. And it made Toronto unique, and it was a tourist industry. What more do you want? The Jays are doing it. This needs to have done it, but somebody made a wrong call.
So right now, U of T, first of all, they ultimately had the property to begin with. Yeah. They didn't give it away, but it was put into possession of the ROM. The ROM held onto it during the operation of the planetarium, and then they sold it back to U of T for $22 million. And U of T is now developing it to be a 6-story, that changed from 8 following a petition, 6-story building that will house their School of Cities and Urban Planning. So what do you think about at least it could be potentially used by students?
Yeah, but I mean, then do what you do in most things, is like build around it. I mean, if you got something this unique, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know?
Thank you, SJ. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your threads, too. Thank you. So, SJ Wilson, we really appreciate your perspective on this. And just as we send it back inside Bakari, and also, just one thing to bear in mind, demolition is at this point starting in April. But the other thing is that the permit was from last November. And I've been hearing from people that work at the ROM, and there has been a lot of inside work done already. It's potentially gutted at this point. We can't get inside to tell you, but we'll have more perspectives to share later on throughout the night.
All right, reporting live, CP24's Andrew Brennan.
And the Ford government's looking to roll back some green initiatives when it comes to new developments. The proposed legislation means developers would no longer be required to add more tree canopy, electric vehicle chargers, bird-friendly window coatings, or other sustainable design standards beyond what's required for health and safety. The government says the changing of the municipal standards will lower costs and get projects built faster.
Well, a new report suggests that when it comes to the standard of living, Ontario residents are falling behind our American neighbors. The Fraser Institute ranks our province near the bottom of the Great Lakes region in GDP per person. A study shows the gap between Ontario and nearby U.S. states has widened significantly over the last 2 decades. In 2024, Ontario's GDP per person was just over $74,000, while the second lowest among the 9 jurisdictions studied, ahead of only Quebec. The average was nearly $95,000. The study says Ontario's lagging growth translates into fewer jobs and slower wage growth.
It's 5:44, 6 degrees, feeling like 3. This is Live at 5.
And we are getting closer to the World Cup, and we're learning more about FIFA celebrations that are going to be held across the country, including in the GTHA. Those details are next.
A spin-off of the award-winning The Handmaid's Tale debuts today, continuing the story of Gilead and the Testaments. A special screening of the series is playing at Cineplex Varsity Cinemas tonight. And, of course, CTV's Andrea Case is there, joining us from the red carpet on Bloor West. So this is a big deal, given that it's another Margaret Atwood project.
Liz, let me tell you, it's actually a purple carpet because the characters in the Testament wear purple. In The Handmaid's Tale, they wore those red capes with the white hats. You may remember those. Well, now
yes.
It's all about purple. Brian Weatherhead is my cameraman. Let Brian just kind of show you what's going on here. This is the carpet, and it's a long one. They have transformed the Cineplex here at 55 Bloor West. I almost went to the wrong theater because you know me. I'm very bad at checking where I'm supposed to go. Anywho, here I am, and we're awaiting the stars of this incredible new series that drops tonight on Disney+.
Okay, so Andrea, speaking of stars, who's going to be walking the purple carpet tonight?
Okay, I'm really excited to see Warren Littlefield, and everyone at home is saying who? He is the executive behind Must See TV on NBC, which is before all of your times, but he brought Seinfeld and Friends and all those shows to television. But really, no, the stars of this television series, we have Lucy Halliday and we have Chase Infinity. And of course, everybody remembers Chase Infinity from one battle after another with that breakout role.
And Andrea, don't do me like that. I know about Must See TV. Come on now.
Well, maybe that's because, hopefully everyone remembers Must See TV, but he was really instrumental. Maybe David Letterman isn't too happy about Warren Littlefield because, you know, he didn't put him in the #1 slot for talk shows. But this show, again, you talked about Margaret Atwood. She's not on the list to be here tonight, and that's understandable. The lady has done a lot, and she's given us this incredible story, which followed. It came out like 34 years after The Handmaid's Tale. Based on the success of, I think, the television series, people wanted to know more what was going to happen to the folks of Gilead and these women and all the things they went through. Read the books. And so then this book was written. And these two young stars have the incredible opportunity now to bring the Testaments to life.
Yeah, and The Handmaid's Tale made stars of actors, so this is probably likely to happen with this. These newcomers will be overnight sensations or household names soon. What's the buzz around the Testament?
Okay, so depending on who you talk to, they're already household names. I mean, Chase Infinity, she did not get the Academy Award nomination, but she did win awards. The movie won Best Picture. So this is just going to elevate them to a whole new level. And so the buzz is that this is something you have to watch. And hopefully tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll be talking to them as they walk the purple carpet. They give me the wrap sign. So Liz and Bakari, I'm going to send it back to you from 55 Bloor Street West.
All right, CTV's Andrea Case. Have a great time, Andrea.
And the FIFA World Cup is going to be celebrated in cities across Canada when the tournament kicks off here in Toronto in June. Canada Celebrates is essentially a traveling FIFA festival that will make 38 stops across 34 communities during the tourney, including Brampton, Burlington, Mississauga, and Vaughan. The goal of the initiative is to give as many Canadians as possible the chance to celebrate the World Cup spectacle without leaving their communities.
They could expect first a lot of fun, a lot of football, and celebration. So you get the opportunity to play games, be part of some interactive competitions, have a mini pitch, food, and you can watch every game on the large screen that we're bringing, portable screen. Everybody's going to be able to sit right down, bring your own chair, and watch every important game. Remember, in the group stage, there are days where there's 4 matches. So you can really sit down and have your own football festival just for yourself in your community.
It's just another opportunity to emphasize that 2026 is truly Canada's year of sport. You know, we just celebrated the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. I was just up in Whitehorse for the Arctic Winter Games. There's so many opportunities. It's the 50th anniversary of the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal this summer. So, like, the list goes on. There's so many amazing sporting events in Canada this year. Obviously, the FIFA Men's World Cup is the biggest event in the world this year. So we're proud to be hosting 13 games in Toronto and Vancouver, but we want to make sure that it's also a proud moment for people in St. John's and Quebec City and Revelstoke and in Burlington and Brampton, right across the country.
We're going to have as many games as possible of the FIFA World Cup broadcasted onto the screens at Celebration Square. People in Mississauga would know what that is. And so we're all in. We're all in on this. And we know from a tourism and economic development standpoint, this is going to be a real positive, a great value add.
And the FIFA World Cup, it gets underway June 11th, and Canada plays Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is going to be the opening match at BMO Field the following day.
It's 5:53, 6 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And the Jays are trying to avoid a series sweep by the LA Dodgers. We're going to take you live to the Rogers Center next.
The Blue Jays looking to avoid being swept by the LA Dodgers this afternoon as they try to put the brakes on a 6-game losing streak. For more in today's game, we're going to head live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. Melissa, this is a real nail-biter this afternoon, isn't it?
It is. It is, and they could be walking away with a win here. Currently, the score is 4-3 in the Jays' favor. We're at the top of the 9th inning right now, just 1 or 2 outs away from a win, and this is the win that the Jays and the Jays fan base really want to get, because it would mean putting an end to a 6-game losing skid. So far this season, coming off to a rough start, 4-7 is their record at the moment. Jays first to get on the board in this game. Listen, it has been a battle since then, with the LA Dodgers, the World Series champions, as we all know, managing to stay out on top until the Jays were able to return a couple of runs of their own here today. Of course, the Jays battling injury early on in this very young season so far, and that has really been dogging them since the very start of this season. So what fans have been telling us, they need this team to stay healthy, for one thing, and also just to stop making some mistakes. There have been some sloppy plays and also some missed opportunities. There was one shot in this game in the 7th inning, bases loaded for the Jays, just 1 out. They weren't able to capitalize on that. And unfortunately, that's been a story that we've seen so many times, the Jays just abandoning men on base and not being able to get those runs in that they need. We're hoping for that horn to go off any second now to tell us that it is a win. It could just be seconds away, and that would mean that some happy fans are going to be pouring out of here. That is the best case scenario here. We do know that the Jays have an off day tomorrow, and then they're going to be hosting the Minnesota Twins throughout the weekend. But a loss here for the Jays, that would mean 2 consecutive series sweeps. Not an ideal way to kick things off, especially since Bakari and Liz, we know those expectations were just sky high for these Blue Jays, coming off late in the season last year, November baseball that just did not go our way. Can we finally put an end to that losing here today? Listen, we could be seconds away from finding out. For now, back to you.
All right, thanks for that update. Go Jays, go. That's CP24's Melissa Duggan.
Well, schools across the GTA marked International Day of Pink today. Harvard Collegiate was one of the schools with special events and assemblies. The day started in Nova Scotia in 2007. That's when students rallied around a classmate who was bullied for wearing a pink shirt. It's evolved into a day to highlight the importance of fostering diversity and inclusion. And Prime Minister Mark Carney is going to speak to Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen tonight as He and his Artemis II crewmates head back to Earth after a historic mission around the moon. And Canada is the second country in the world to send an astronaut on a lunar mission. Carney said that it's a testament to Hanson's exceptional skill. Well, on Monday, Hanson and 3 American astronauts completed a 6-hour lunar flyby, going farther into space than any humans before. Industry Minister Melanie Joly will also take part in tonight's call, which is expected at 7:20.
5:59, 6 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.